Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from irishsportsdaily.com. I am your host, Greg Flamong, and with me, instead of my consigliere, my associate, Jamie Ueyama, is the founder and owner of ESQ Clothing and Notre Dame alum, Ge Wang. He is here to tell us about how Marcus Freeman has transformed the Notre Dame football team from a physical standpoint. We were talking about that yesterday. And I was like, wow, this is going to be actually fascinating because Ge famously outfits the entire Notre Dame football program with his wonderful bamboo dress shirts and suits and all those things. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to get into his experience as a Notre Dame fan, as a Notre Dame student, how he views the football team in 2023 and where it's going under Marcus Freeman. And we're going to talk about all those things. So if you like what you hear today and this is your first time and you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the show, hit the like button, hit the notification bell so you know we're going live. Podcast links are in the description below if you prefer the audio form show. Can you hear me, bud?
Yeah.
There we go.
I am excited to be here. I don't get to let loose, I guess, on a lot of these podcasts that I go on or really talk about something. I mean, outside of the passion about the fashion aspect of things, but this is a true passion of mine. So
yeah, I've in talking to you before the show and the show prep, it was it come to find out, like, yes, you are very much honestly kind of similar to me in our fandom and when we came up and that sort of thing. But God, this is normally when I would do my ESQ read and pump up the product. So I have you here. So why don't you tell us?
I don't know, Greg. You make it sound like I need to hire you as another salesperson. You do such a good job. I've been doing this for almost 12 years now. And kind of during COVID or just before that, bamboo bed sheets have been a thing. And it's what I use. They're cooling. It's super soft. It's just a really nice product. So we kind of retooled that a little bit, reformulated it, created a two-way stretch fabric so it still retains its drape. So we created a performance shirt that looks like a dress shirt, or the other way around. It's really like, it's soft to the touch, it's cooling, it's odor resistant, wrinkle resistant. The kicker is it's machine washable. It's like the ultimate dress shirt. So it's something that I'm really proud of. And then, the bread and butter is still our high end, like custom suiting. And obviously we dress a lot of the Notre Dame guys, alumni, coaches, former players, you name it. We have a pretty large Notre Dame contingent. It's good to keep it in the family.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Sorry. The code, there's always a code. So if you go on the website, if you're looking for a new shirt or something, use ESQ Club and get 15% off your first purchase. And then if you ever need anything custom, you come into our store in Chicago, just mention Notre Dame and you'll get a 10% discount.
There it is. ESQ Club. And then you get 15% off. And then go in, mention Notre Dame, mention ISD, and you get, what was it, 10% off of that?
Yep, 10% off your custom purchase.
Perfect. So Justin Knox, don't worry, bud. He asked a bunch of questions, and we can.
We'll get there. We will get there.
I ran it all by Ge, and I'm telling you, he knows the football team. He is the outfitter of Notre Dame football, but we are not only going to talk about clothes and suits and that whole thing. Football team today. It's exciting, and I, as we brought up on the show on Tuesday, ESQ is no longer the only sponsor of this show. I was talking to God. He knows Vahid Zadradze. I messed it up. That's all right. Founded by VSR Media. He founded by Notre Dame and pregame host. That's Vahid Zadradze. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or aiming to diversify your growing business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-term video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior and sport Contact Vahid at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off project. Visit us online or give us a call at 574-800-9106. You know what this is, Ga? This is 4 for 40 right here on this show. You know, everyone talks about 4 for 40. God, Notre Dame alum, Vahid, Notre Dame alum, going on, starting your own businesses, being successful. That's the Notre Dame brand, God. So
The Heat is a great guy too. I mean, he's hosted any day for many years. That's since I've been on. I think since they've started it, really. And yeah, I highly recommend him. He's a true pro at what he does.
Yeah. So let's stay topical on dressing up things. So like the team. You are like you said, you outfit the team. You're the official outfitter of the team. Player walks, like everyone's wearing your suits, right? Everyone's wearing your stuff. And I say all the time, you know, Marcus Freeman, like every time we see him out on a recruiting visit or he's talking to recruits or anything like that, going into homes, he's wearing ESQ clothing, right? I recognize a lot of the shirts there. And so this gives you a unique perspective. If you're outfitting the team, you have to fit the team and you have to get their measurements and all those other things. And you mentioned before, like you have like a kind of unique perspective on the changes on the roster from a physical standpoint, especially from the BK years, which is interesting because it's only been a couple years, right? It's not like it's not like Marcus Freeman's been around for 4 or 5 years or anything like that. It's a very short time. Tell me about the changes that you've seen on the Notre Dame roster, and then we can get into what that might mean.
We're kind of getting right into it.
Team.
And I don't think it's just Notre Dame. I think it's a thing that you've noticed is that there is a profile athlete that Coach Freeman kind of recruits, especially at different positions. I got a lot of guys come in leaner than you would like, but I think in the last 5 years, there's been just a general, the kids coming in are a lot more physically ready and physically developed for the college game. They don't look like necessarily high school kids anymore. Other than that, we really emphasize length with this staff. Regardless, just across the board, especially on defense, length is a big requirement. And then you just see some of these offensive linemen that are coming in. I mean, we always complain as Notre Dame fans that they're small, they're not Georgia size, but they're substantially larger than like when they were coming in 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Those kids would come in, 250, 260 pounds. These guys are coming in close to 300. They're not there yet, but you can tell there's a marked difference in offensive linemen. Linebacker is another position that guys are bigger. I don't think it's just Notre Dame. I see it across some of the other teams as well in college. I don't know if the game is the run and shoot is kind of dying down a little bit. Some teams are going back to power football, but there's definitely more size at linebacker. For example, we used to put all of our freshman linebackers almost pretty much in like a size 46 jacket. Now we're up to like a 48 or 50, kind of just across the board. I don't know. Maybe it's the college football landscape where the power run game is kind of coming back a little bit, which I am all for because that's what I grew up with.
Yeah, everything is kind of cyclical in that way. I've actually been kind of, because you see the kind of the recent success of like Michigan. You look at them and the way that they've been able to play. Michigan, Georgia, exactly, and so they have. There is kind of a coming back of that, and I think Notre Dame was starting to kind of lean into that with Tommy Rees, and we'll see where that goes with Jared Parker as new offensive coordinator. Regarding the length, we've really seen that this cycle, recruiting wise, especially. There's been a lot of, I guess, criticism of the caliber of players that Notre Dame's taken, especially at linebacker, Cahoon and Teddy Rizak. But they do fit those dimensions. They're very long. They're very athletic. They're tall guys, like big guys. Like they fit that athletic profile. And that's something that Marcus Freeman has definitely gone after, on the trail. And we'll kind of see how that pans out, right? Like those are guys that, you're not going to see a big contribution from them probably in the first couple of years. But as you get along and as the roster kind of develops more and more and more, You're going to see the speed. Like, I feel like people are always complaining about the speed of Notre Dame, right? Notre Dame's too slow. And I think he's really trying to fix that. And that was something that, you saw at Cincinnati, right? Like, obviously the idea behind it is at Cincinnati, you don't have any of the high caliber, like high 4-star players, like for instance, Jalen Sneed or Drake Bowen or Josh Burnham, Ziegler, guys like that, where it's like you can't really get those guys at Cincinnati, but you do want that style of player. And I think that Marcus Freeman has definitely, going towards that model. It's like, I want size, I want length, and I want speed. He's definitely gone after that. Let's make a comparison to BK and his time at Notre Dame. Like, was there what is the difference you've seen just in a couple of years there?
Well, if we're talking about how close the team chemistry is good. Team chemistry has kind of always been good. There's always been good leadership under BK in terms of players. Mm-hmm. I would say the big drastic difference is there's a lot more chemistry amongst the coaching staff nowadays.
Oh, interesting.
I think, it's something that's behind the scenes that most people don't know or really don't hear about. But I think the coaching staff is a lot more tight-knit than before. Before it's kind of like, you would have two guys that would be close but it was very rare to have a fully cohesive staff. I think that's pretty different nowadays. Just walking around in that building, you get a different feel for what's going on.
That's very interesting. You like that. I feel like I don't want to sit. I would have thought, but just in terms of like how long Brian Kelly was around,
right.
You just feel like maybe he would have been. It would have been like very comfortable, especially at the end. Like because he always brought in people that he's familiar with. And at the end, there was a little bit of difference, but like with Clark Lee and Tommy Rees, like Tommy Rees is walking around, right? Like he knows those guys. Dell Alexander, like he'd been around for a long time. It's interesting that would be the case. Mike Elston, like he'd worked with him in the past. So I wonder how that's going to manifest itself on the football field.
I mean, to Brian Kelly's credit, he's created. I mean, he's groomed a lot of really good coaches. I mean, there's a lot of his guys that are head coaches now, NFL, college. I mean, he is a very good like you hear this a lot. He's a really good CEO. He lets people delegate. He delegates a lot of his tasks. Is he around the office as much as Marcus Freeman? Like, not a chance, right? He's not nearly as hands-on. You can ask any of his former players on the record, off the record, they're going to tell you the same thing. He's not as involved, but he's great at delegating. And I think that's why he succeeds. But Marcus is different. Marcus is every time I see him, I'm like, hey, dude, like you need to get some sleep. He works harder than anyone I know, and I don't know how he does it, but I mean, we're all kind of in the same boat. A lot of I guess most Notre Dame fans are. I think he gets it, and everyone wants him to succeed because he works so damn hard at it, right? So, I think that's the big difference. I think the coaching staff is a little different. The makeup is different. It's definitely younger, right? There's a lot more energy. I think the players are going to respond to that, especially nowadays. I think we have some limitations at Notre Dame, getting kids into school. We have the weather. We have, as a former student, we have the female population that is not, SEC caliber. So there are some hurdles, right? But like it takes a special kind of guy to lead that program. I think we're in the right place.
Okay, so let's go in on the limitations a little bit, because you talked about that, and I'm always curious to get the perspective of people around the program, I guess, around it seems like you're talking to Marcus quite a bit. So what, in your view, what does Notre Dame need to do as a football program to mitigate the limitations, or the natural things, right? Like not where Notre Dame is located, with the type of school that they are. there's not going to be online courses and that sort of thing. Like just the boilerplate stuff that everyone knows about. Like, how does Notre Dame mitigate those things? What can they do better on that view?
I think Jack has done a great job in kind of really bring football to where it has been nowadays. I think there's room to grow in that department. I think there's room for the administration to really get behind this NIL piece. I know they're making progress because, I address a lot of the guys on the board of trustees, that kind of level as well. So they are making progress, but it's kind of like Notre Dame has always been reactionary to the landscape in general. I think this crapshoot of Greg Sankey saying, "Hey, let's have the feds legislate this," that's not going to happen. So but also, like, you'll see that this model of, hey, if we're going to pay kids a ton of money to come to school to play football, is not sustainable in the long term. It really isn't. No one has that kind of money. No one wants to pay unofficially $18 million for that A&M recruiting class, of which half the kids are still there, right? But I think there's ways to improve there. I certainly don't have the answers. Maybe we get P. Bavagua up on here and pick his brain. But who is also an ES2 client. But I think there are just ways that I would like to see Notre Dame become more anticipatory instead of reactive.
How would you view? Okay, so you're in the apparel game, so to speak. But what is your thought on the Under Armour versus Nike conversation? I'm just so you know, and you've listened to the show, so you know where I come out here. Very pro Nike, very pro Nike. Where do you come out on that?
I think my viewpoint is irrelevant. I think it's what the kids want for player safety.
What I think. Let me. How important is it for the players themselves, like the apparel, like the how
I think like as for a shirt or a jacket, I don't think it really matters what the logo is, right? Or for the jersey, but I think it really matters when it comes down to footwear. I think there's a real difference between quality of Nike footwear and Under Armour footwear, just because of you have decades of engineering that go into making those. Like, yes, I get it. Making a pair of shoes is not doesn't cost much money. You're talking like a really nice pair of football cleats probably costs $5 to $8 to make. The rest goes into marketing, but there is a huge part of that goes into R&D. So I think Nike has been doing this for a long time. They're specifically better for big guys, and I think that's important. But money talks. I mean, if you put me in that position and there's tens of millions of dollars in difference, that's gonna matter. I don't know. You would think that Notre Dame could put that aside and be like, hey, we have a huge endowment. We can figure this out. But I'm not the athletic director. That's a Jack question.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's a player performance problem. It's like literally comes down to performance on the field. So that has to weigh. Like, and honestly, like you said, it's easy for us to say, oh yeah, just turn down the money. Like, it's not our decision, right? Like, we're not in that position. We don't know what that would mean for the program itself, where that money, the extra money could go. But I don't know. I'm very partial to Nike. I've said many times, if they go with Under Armour, I'm going to do a live show, and Jamie doesn't have to come on it, and I'm going to complain, and I'm going to do a rant probably.
I mean, you just look at the top athletes across, let's just focus on football, like in the NFL, right? How many of your top players are wearing Under Armour? It's
what's funny?
Few and far between.
Well, I'll tell you what's funny is Kyle Hamilton is repped by Under Armour.
Oh, okay.
My guy. So, but I don't know. He wore Under Armour.
Not known for his straight line speed, maybe? I don't know. I'm just kidding.
That's tough. It's tough. It's true though. That's a bummer. That's true. You got me. Not known for his straight. That's good stuff. No, but you're right. I mean, that and Matt talked about too, like how many, like It's been a Nike team that's won the national championship every year since like 2010 or whatever it was, 2013. It's usually a Nike program, and so there might be a reason for that. So when Notre Dame was not Nike, they were not under like a Reebok team. They were Adidas for a little bit. When is your first champion? Oh,
champion
mesh jerseys.
The champion.
Well,
days.
that there was an article in the Notre Dame Observer talking about you got to bring back the mesh champion jerseys, and they got to forego Under Armour and Nike and Jordan and everything to go back to champion. So maybe that's
kids love champion nowadays. I don't know. It's made a comeback.
But kids on the street corner, many people are talking about the champion brand.
Yeah.
What is your first Notre Dame memory there as a fan?
Okay. So we'll kind of get into the story a little bit. So my Notre Dame story is that I was born in China, and when I was 4 years old, my father left China to come to the U.S. kind of create a better life for us. So when I was 2 years old. So between the ages of 2 and 5, my dad was here. My mom left shortly after too. So they were just kind of trying to figure things out here. And then through Father Ted, he started a program for international students from China, a pilot program. And my dad was his first law student. So that's our Notre Dame story. I mean, I grew up, I lived in South Bend between like 5 and 7 or 8. I grew up a Notre Dame fan. My sister was born at South Bend Memorial. I mean, it's I always knew if I could manage the grades, I would. That's probably where I would end up. So yeah, that's the Notre Dame story. But I've been going to games. I've been a rabid fan since I was 5 years old. I think. I mean, you talk about memories from back in the day. Watching, Mark Edwards was definitely one of the favorites. A guy that gets grossly overlooked because I'm not that big, but like I enjoy the underdogs. Joey Getherall is one of my favorite players.
Let's go.
Shout out. He's in your area. He's a firefighter out there.
His coach was my coach.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So he came to Notre Dame, and then his my coach was the defensive coordinator at his high school. So he wasn't technically his coach, but I mean, when you're in high school and you have a defensive coordinator, like you're gonna, so he came from the high school of my high school head coach.
Yeah. So Joey, and I got connected. I mean, definitely one of my favorite players. And then, when I was a student there, like I was there for the good and the bad Charlie Weiss years. So you have, Zibby just from being a Chicago kid, tough as nails. There's a lot of guys. Oh, Corey Minor, because of his visor, his neck roll just looked like a badass with a single digit.
That whole 95, 96 linebackers like Cobbins, Tatum, Cobbins, Tatum, Burt Berry, Corey Minor with all the dark visor and the cowboy collar. He was also coached by my so he came from the same school. Yeah, so you knew him very well.
So that's long and short of it. I mean, we still go to a lot of games. Usually, I haven't missed a home opener for like 30 years now, something like that. Over 30 years. We started that trend with my boys as well. So we'll keep it going.
And you said you played football?
Played through high school.
Yeah.
Played through high school. I mean, in junior high, I've been this size. I was starting left tackle in junior high.
Let's go, left tackle.
At 5'9", right? I actually played through the same program as Chris Watt. I held down his spot before him, which is really funny.
You were just keeping it warm, Listen, Chris Watt, he was probably the teach tape. You were probably showing him like, hey, this is how it's got to go. This is the footwork.
There was not much footwork. We put our right hand down at left tackle back in the day.
Well, you and Jamie, we got to get you out at a game, and we got to get you. We got to go some one-on-ones at in the parking lot.
Not Jamie. I'm not Jamie's size. I'm all of 5. I'm maybe 5'9.5", maybe.
Well, you know what they say. You know that size is relative. You know, it's leverage, base, that sort of thing. You got to get that stuff down.
I will have a quip about Notre Dame ending Interhall football, and I'm not thrilled about that because I got to play a few more years.
Let's talk about it. You played Interhall football.
Yeah. I loved it. It was just it's not a sport you get to get a couple buddies and like, hey, let's go pick up basketball.
Right, for sure. Yeah.
It's something that I think a lot of the kids that, at least when I was there, that played, like they loved Interhall football. It was just another chance to put on pads. So I'm kind of bummed about that. I get it from a safety, viewpoint. I also get it from Notre Dame doesn't want to get sued.
Right, for sure.
But I'm kind of bummed out about that.
Yeah, when I was in college, before I went to go play football, I was running track. And so my buddies they would live in the dorms, and they would have basically dorm football, which is what it was, but it wasn't organized like that. Like it was just go out there and they're playing tackle and no pads. And I was like, no, that's stupid. Like, I'm not doing that. Because I had played tackle, right? So it's like, if I've played tackle, I'm not going to go like trying to tackle someone with my shoulder, like bare shoulder. Like you'll get hurt, right? Like that's bad. So at least Interhall football, it's somewhat organized. You got pads on. You got the helmet.
There's refs. There might be some
referees.
Kids. There might be some kids that are really hungover, or maybe still a little inebriated from the night before. But
it's a bummer. I mean, like you said, I can see it both ways, especially in like 2023. You just got to be really careful. You know, there's just with everything. It's not just that, but you got to be like Zom Hall, like getting shut down, like things like that. It's like when you grow up, it's like, oh yeah, it's like the crazy dorm, and now it's kind of like I don't know if that's. I guess I kind of get it, but there is a bit of nostalgia that always goes away with that stuff.
I think crazy for Notre Dame is different than crazy for other places.
Maybe that's very likely the case. So do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite game?
I don't know. From recent memory, I would.
What pops to your mind?
I mean, obviously Clemson last year. Recent memory, right?
Yeah.
Recency bias. Yeah. We were pretty close to the action, and then it was one of those games where it's like, do you rush the field because we're beating them so bad?
Yeah.
And I was with my dad, who's 65, but he wanted to rush the field, so we did. And then it was kind of like it was a very organized rush the field. And then once we got on there, we're just like, crap. Now what do we do? Like we're not celebrating with a bunch of 18 to 20-year-olds. So like it took us like 40 minutes to get off the field, but that was fun. Honestly, like even though we were just stuck at home, that 2020 Clemson game really sticks in my mind because that's the first big win we've had in a long time. Granted, Trevor wasn't playing, but I mean, still the way that game was won. And then was it USC 2014? The Will Fuller one?
15.
15? Yeah, that was something. And then my first home game as a student was Michigan in 2004. So the first home game when we knocked off, I think, number 3 Michigan.
Yes, Darius Walker.
Yeah, Darius Walker. Yep.
Yeah, so a lot of good stuff there. A lot of good stuff. A lot of home openers. Unfortunately, like I can think of some bad ones. Although they usually win the home opener. They usually do.
As long as we don't schedule Ohio State. Yeah.
Well, it's
that was
gosh, that was so unfortunate. Just like a really kind of tough way for Marcus Freeman to kind of start, right? Like you have the Fiesta Bowl, then you have Ohio State, your first 2 games. And Marshall obviously didn't help. How nervous were you at the start of last year? Because I was pretty. If you listen to our like post game shows after that, first of all, Mike was very much not in a good space.
Yeah.
But it was concerning. I mean, because Tyler Buckner had just gotten hurt. I mean, you're looking at like 5-7. I thought 4-8 was in play. Seriously. Honestly.
Yeah, I'm pretty concerned. I don't know. It's Notre Dame's had a hard time kind of getting things going, not just last year, but you talk about a couple of years before that when we really should have lost to Vanderbilt. Mm-hmm. Right? That would have changed everything. Like there's been some games where, but that's football, right? It's not one on paper. There's always going to be upsets. That's why people love the sport. I don't know. I think this year sets up a lot better, right? We get some. It's not Michigan. It's not like Michigan's schedule or anything close to that, but at least you get some kind of runway into the tougher games. It's hard.
Yeah, and it's all very like kind of in the middle, but like weeks 4 or I think weeks 4 Duke through like 9.
I think Duke is going to be a really tough game. Just the way it's sandwiched into the schedule.
Yeah,
I think that's the
it is definitely difficult. I think that Notre Dame is able to. So I think coaches and players kind of like it when the season is compartmentalized, or you kind of break it up, right? And I think it'll be very easy for them to say, okay, like the first 3 weeks we're ramping up, and then weeks 4 through, I guess, in the Clemson are very like, okay, this is when we need to be peaking. This is when we need to be on our game all the time. And I think when you do that, when you break it up into like a 5 or 6 week kind of run up, that really helps a team, because and what comes after that might be a little bit dangerous, just in terms of a letdown and that sort of thing. But it really helps a team kind of focus on, okay, because it's hard to go like 1-12, like we're on all the time. Like that doesn't really work. And that's why you see so many upsets, right? Like that's when you see so many kind of like let down games and in games when it just doesn't happen, because you can't do it. You can't do. I mean, we saw with Lou Holtz, like Lou Holtz teams like had this problem where it's like they would lose like the most random game. Like they would lose like 1990, lose a terrible game to Stanford. That was a terrible Stanford team, right? The same thing happened in 1992, right? So like there's always some stumbling.
It happens with the great teams, with the great coaches. We call Urban Meyer a great coach. I mean, that's what his Ohio State teams are known for, right? Just losing a random,
just getting absolutely boat raced by like Iowa, some random,
Purdue.
Random thing. Yeah. So it's interesting about Marcus Freeman too, and I want to get your view on this as well. I think too much last year was made of him being a first-time head coach. Like everything bad that happened, like it was attributed to him being a first-time head coach. Lost to Marshall. Like he didn't know how to come back from the Ohio State game. First-time head coach. Like didn't know how to get the team up. And I always thought, well, I mean, Notre Dame like in 2021 with Brian Kelly, who's is the complete opposite of a first-time head coach. Like he'd been doing it for 3 decades. And they start out with Florida State, and then they come back against Toledo, and they lay an egg against Toledo, right? I mean, they're on the way to losing, frankly, to Toledo, right? So to me, it's like the difference between losing that game and winning that game, it comes down to a couple bounces. One guy, like if the quarterback decides to take a knee, they're going to lose the game. And so to me, it's like they weren't ready to go. They weren't sharp on that game, on that day. The same thing as Marcus Freeman, right? And so to me, I think the kind of the evidence of Marcus Freeman as a coach comes after that, when he's able to get them to find a way to win against Cal. When you got the backup quarterback, and Drew Pine can't do anything in the first quarter. It looks terrible. Can't do anything. Go and beat BYU, right? Go beat North Carolina and Drake May, who's like, is a really great quarterback, right? And you go out on the road and beat North Carolina. Obviously, that defense is terrible, but it's a great offensive team. And then they come back against Stanford, and they have a letdown against Stanford, which we've seen in other seasons with Brian Kelly's teams on 2021, on the way to losing to a terrible Virginia Tech team, right? And they lose that game, and then they go beat Syracuse. Then they go beat Clemson, right? And then they run off a string of games. You finish 8-4. Like, to me, a bad coach doesn't finish 8-4 last year. It falls off. Like the season falls off the rails. I don't think that's a good season, right? And then you go win the bowl game. So go ahead.
I think leadership on the team definitely matters, right?
Yeah.
I don't think Notre Dame ever lacks leadership, or very rarely do they lack leadership in that locker room. So I think that definitely helps as well. I think last year, honestly, not to throw anyone under the bus, but we were limited by the talent on the field. I think there's no other way to look at that. When your offense can't stay on the field, it's hard. It's hard when you I think there's a reason that Hartman's here and those two guys aren't, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully we get the good Sam Hartman.
I mean, you could say, like, it was they had a talent deficiency at quarterback, right? And in the losses, you just look and it's poor quarterback play, you know. And we said it at the time.
We hark on the defense, but if you're going 3 and out and 3 and out and 3 and out and 3 and out, there's no defense that just can be dominant, especially nowadays. It's very tough for that to happen. Not that, let's just give a quick pass to everything that the defense did last year. But I think the offense really limited what you could do. Granted, like, Michael Mayer is one of the greatest players to ever play at Notre Dame, but if your tight end is your number one option and kind of your only option, that is a problem.
Yeah, me and Jamie talked about that in the preseason last year of, like, how good can you be if your tight end is your best player, Right. And obviously Georgia, like, you can be pretty good, I guess.
Bowers is different, man. Bowers is different.
Well, also, like, the rest of that roster is also different as well. I mean, that's kind of a different, that context is different. And, we're speaking in the context of Notre Dame. It kind of foretold, like, you're not going to be the most explosive team, right? Like, you're not going to be the most dynamic team if your tight end is your best player there. But speaking of the defense, like you said, like, and where it's like the defense was really bad was USC, and obviously Caleb Williams got a lot to do with that, right? Like, he made a lot of defenses look terrible. Like, even in the losses they had against Utah, like, he did numbers, So, but yeah, like, obviously giving up 21 to Ohio State, you take that every time. You go into the fourth quarter against Marshall, they've given up 12 points. Obviously, you don't like the drive at the end, right? But it's like, if you're a top 30 defense, you should be able to beat Marshall. Points, right? You give up 19 points against Marshall. One was a pick six. That's not on the defense. You give up 19 points against Marshall, you should win. You give up 16 points against Stanford, should win, right? So I think the defense was not dominant, and they've got a lot to improve upon. And there's a lot of guys, and defensive line. They have to replace Isaiah Foskey, right? And they replace Jason Adamalola, both Adamalola, right? And they have to do that. Linebackers have to play better, but I think the defense, because of the way the stats came out, I think it's a little bit, people look at holistically, I think they look at them as like a really bad unit, when in fact, you're talking probably like top 35, top 30 defense.
Above average. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly able to win. And with Sam Hartman this year, you expect, okay, we're going to be putting up points on these teams. We don't need to be, we don't need to be squeaking out games 20-17 against, the Stanfords of the world. Well, who are you excited? I mean, obviously beyond Sam Hartman, because I think everyone's excited about him. Who are you excited to see on the offense, right? Like, Audric Estime is going to get a much bigger role. Who else are you excited about on the offense?
Those are kind of like everyone's kind of been talked about already, right? I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see Billy Stroud.
Oh, okay. There you go. Oh, well, offensive lineman, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. I mean, everyone else has been talked about it ad nauseum. Tobias and Audric, I think, is in for a monster year. But if you have Billy who can lock down a spot and really move guys and put him next to Joe, I mean, that's, I think, like, potentially on a Quentin Nelson, Mike McGlinchey kind of level, where you can just run at guys. And if you can do that, if you can get a 3-yard push from your offensive line, then have Audric make first contact at 3-4 yards, that's a win, right? Yeah, I would say I'm if the offensive line is good, I think this offense is going to roll.
Yeah, I mean, it's especially when you factor in, you know, it can do much more. Like you can do so much more at quarterback, right? And I think that's the thing that people are kind of forgetting is because last year was so limited offensively. And to be in some ways, it was very limited in 2021 too, because in early the offensive line wasn't great. And Jack Cohn, he was a very good, like kind of a mid-range passer, but he wasn't the type of guy, like he wasn't like Sam Hartman where it's like, I want to push the ball. Like I want to go. And even if he did, like really good at it. Like we've talked about it a lot. He wasn't a great deep ball thrower. I think Sam Hartman's a great deep ball thrower. And so that can open up the offense so much more. I kind of have a feeling that there's a chance. You remember, so speaking of 05, when you were in college and 04 was your first season, that offense was not good. Like gross.
No.
In terms of just like everything was so elementary.
Yeah.
Like I feel like can we complete a slant route? Can we complete an out route?
We couldn't last year.
Exactly. Like there are so many things last year. It's like, can we run an RPO like ever? You know? And so like it was just it felt so elementary. It felt so basic. And then in going back to 04 and 05, the difference between 04 and 05, it's like Charlie Weiss comes in. It's like every pass, someone's wide open. People are running free everywhere. You know, we're running double back-to-back screenplays. You know, it just seemed, and I think that's why people were so excited and people have such good feelings about that 05 team because of the contrast to 04. And I think that has a chance to happen this year where it's just like, every time I say they always get mad at me when I say that. Like the Notre Dame fan in me just comes out all the time. Anytime Notre Dame drops back last year, it was like, I don't know, like is this good or is it not good? Yeah. I feel like this year it has a chance to be like really okay. Like we're dropping back, someone's about to be wide open. It's going to be great. You know, I think that's in there. I mean, all that depends on the wide receivers. Chris Tyree is going to be a big deal. Tobias Merriweather, I'm being intentionally not going too far in on Tobias. There's just a lot there. There's a lot of potential there, and I don't want to put too much. And I have done it in the past. Like I said, like I made a video last year that Lorenzo Styles is going to be like Will Fuller in 2014.
I thought so too.
Didn't happen.
Yeah, but you know they're similar, right? Elite kind of speed. Will Fuller honestly had some pretty sketchy hands too. He would catch catch all the tough passes, the over the head like bombs. But then if you just threw him a screen, he would drop all of those. It was very strange. It was very strange. So they were similar kind of in that regard.
Yeah, and then I was not in the program. College football. What a sport.
Yeah.
You talked about Jalen Sneed earlier. And you're a big fan, I think. Oh, who else are you looking for to make a contribution this year that maybe didn't last year?
I mean, it wouldn't be fair to say he didn't, but Botello is the obvious choice, right? I think the kid is going to have. I think he's going to have a monster year, not just because he's Matt Freeman's favorite player, but yeah, I mean, if you extrapolate what he did, just look at the bowl game. I mean, I don't know why. I honestly couldn't tell you why he didn't get more minutes. I think he's in for a monster year. Yeah. I think Xavier Watts has a chance to be special.
There you go, right there. That's my guy. 26.
And I've been reading these comments, and everyone's like, "Who's going to start next week?" X. I have a decent feeling by the middle of the season, it's going to be that transfer from where is it, New Hampshire,
Rhode Island,
Rhode Island. Yeah, I think at least from a physical standpoint. I mean, Thomas Harper is not by any means a physically imposing player. I'm sure he'll get some time, but I think this kid just looking at him, be like, oh, if he can pick up the position, he's got the physical part down for sure. Like he's got an NFL kind of build.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance that happens before the middle of the season. I mean that could be game one. You know,
and then people always. And then, and people always talk trash about the linebackers, but I think Bertrand's a really good player. I mean, he's not like he's not a first round pick. He's like he might be a free agency or late rounder somewhere, but he understands the game. I mean, people talk about. I think you look back and everyone's like, our linebackers are so bad. Everyone thinks back to Bertrand, but that was 2 years ago when he was playing with one arm, right? So I think Bertrand, Kaiser, Marist, if he can turn around the mental part of it, I mean, you got a good core, but it's the young guys. Obviously, it's the young guys you're excited about.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of. I think specifically Bertrand. I think he gets too much. He gets too much flack because his numbers were good. For the amount of snaps he played, people have to remember, like, Marist played the most snaps. But 600, like what he had, 605 or something like that. Like that's not a lot of snaps. Like Coney and Tranquil played like 900 something snaps. Yeah. It's like that is full time. Like playing 600 is not that many. I think Bertrand, I think he was fine. You know, he had a couple targeting penalties and missed a lot of time that way. I think Jack Kaiser has the chance to like have a really good year. I like to throw.
He's a really, really good athlete. People don't talk about this. He's one of the fastest players on that team, but just doesn't get talked about. I don't know. I think they got a chance to be pretty good. Marist just wasn't fully. I don't think he was fully healthy. Yeah, it's not like he came back from. Everyone just expected 1 year off from his injury and him to be 100%. I don't think that necessarily happens. And I think this ties in the JD Price piece. Like, I mean, I've heard from everyone that last spring ball, right? I've heard from multiple people that he was the best running back in the room. And you got some good backs in there.
Yeah.
Looking at him physically. So this is the cool piece is that like we get that sneak peek of what everyone looks like physically before anyone else does because we're making jackets for everyone. JD Price is like, his upper body is Audric big. He's put on some noticeable size, but his legs are still pretty small. I mean, it's just from his injury, right? So if he can get back to form, I think he's gonna be pretty good. It's a tough injury to come back from that fast.
Yeah. It's so there's that piece. I don't know what to make of JD Price. Speaking of him, I'm concerned about just the Achilles and the lack of work that he got. Marcus Freeman has now said though to multiple outlets, to Notre Dame, to Irish Sports Daily. He told Matt, he's 100% ready to go. He told Irish Illustrated, I think it was Tim Priester who did that interview. He told him he was 100% ready to go. And so he just keeps saying that. So I don't know. I've been very like kind of bearish on him, but obviously we'll see what happens. They open spring practice.
There's no need to push him. There's no need to push him, right? You got Audric who can carry most of the load. I think there are times where it's not just the training staff, but these kids obviously want to play, right?
Yeah.
But like, there's just times kids are coming back too fast. I think Raritan came back too fast. And that kid had elite kind of potential. I think he just came back too fast. I mean, you're talking 9 months from an ACL and you're full go. That's the risk of re-tearing that or tearing the other one is really, really high. So.
Yeah, it's tough because like the sports science now is so advanced that like you can get back. I mean, it's kind of like Sean Crawford, like you saw kind of the same. You can get back. Yeah. But should you be back? You know what I mean? Like it's
every season there's hard. One. Avery Davis.
Yeah.
Right? As another. I feel so bad for him the way that kind of ended. Right. So just because you can doesn't mean you should. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point about like coming back too soon. I hadn't really thought of that. Notre Dame's had a lot of occurrence of major injuries, so that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, not everyone can be Drew Tranquil, right? With no knees and just still balling out in the NFL.
It's look, the power of will, right? Like you go make it happen. I think there's a lot of excitement about the corners this year. Cam Hart is another one where I was on him a little bit earlier than most people. I defend him a lot because I think, Jamie and I have talked a lot about he has what's called, I like to call loud misses, loud bad plays, where it's like he has most of his play is solid, really good. I mean, his numbers from a completion percentage standpoint, from a yards per attempt standpoint, I mean, they're up there with like the Julian Loves and Troy Prides.
Just got to stay healthy.
Got to stay healthy, but he gives up too many loud plays, like kind of mental errors, blown assignments, that sort of thing. He's got to clean those up. But the shoulder, like you said, it's just like such a problem, and it's been a problem his entire career. It concerns me, but I think, gosh, if he could just stay healthy and stay on track. I mean, I think he's a NFL.
This is the
corner.
best duo we've had since Vontaze Duff and Shane Walton.
Well, think of Julian, like, okay, the best duos, right? Like Vontaze Duff, Shane Walton, like little guys, right? Troy Pride, I think Julian. He might have been 5'11". I think they were both under 6 feet, right? Yeah. So you got two guys, again, little guys, like Ben Morrison, like 6'2". Cam Hart, 6'2", 6'3".
I don't know if Ben is.
I'm gonna say 6'2". Okay, even though you're how tall is he? Tell me how tall he is.
I would say Ben is probably between 6 and 6'1". He's not
6 and 6'1". Let's go. Sixes. Christian Gray is another one. I think he's a taller guy, right? So they have some size at these corners who are good, and I think that's a big deal. It just really helps, man. Like Ben Morrison could be the best corner since like Todd Light, like going way back. I mean, Bobby Taylor, you could call a corner. He played corner in NFL, so we'll call him that. Like Bobby Taylor, Todd Light back in the 90s, just like those types of players. Where you've got that size, got that playmaking ability. He's just a lockdown guy, And
I think corner is one of those positions you can play young guys too. Obviously, you saw Ben do it, but I think from a mental perspective, it's one of the easier positions to learn. Right? You kind of if you're a great athlete, you could play corner. So
yeah.
I hope these young guys get on the field.
Because here's the thing about playing corner, Ge, is that there's only 3 coverages, really.
What are you talking about?
No. There's different coverages for the defense, but you're in man, you're in a third, or you are playing the flat. It's really all right. The rest of the defense, the defense itself can be in some weird coverage, but the corner doesn't have that many different techniques to learn. Things to learn. You're like I said, you're in a quarter coverage or you're third coverage, man, or you're playing the flat, right? Like there's not a lot there. The rest of it can be all confusing. And that's why it's so hard to play safety early, because then you have to learn many things.
It's not the most complicated position. There's a reason why LSU put so many corners in the league.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You don't have to make checks. You have to know the checks, but you don't have to make them. You don't have to know when they're coming out and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's a good point. I mean, Jaden Mickey played early last year.
He's going to be good. He's going to be good. I mean, even the most of the plays where he was beat, he was there, right? It was kind of like, I think he's going to be really good. He just had more, like you said, he had loud misses. I think Mickey's going to be good.
I think for him, you think about the British Open's on right now. Think about I'm going to make a golfing analogy a little bit. It's like if you're a putter and you're looking at 10, 12 footers all the time and they're just burning edges. You get to the point where it's like, man, I'm not going to make any of these, And I think that Jaden Mickey was kind of in that position where it's like he was there, but he was never actually making the play. And so then it gets in your head like, man, I'm getting beat all the time. When really you're there. You know, you're there. And that's the important part. And someone who I remember this was similar in a similar way was Troy Pride in 2016 when he played a little bit too early, but he was always kind of there, but he was always giving up the catch.
He's there to make the tackle. Yeah.
Right.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So
I mean,
it's
you look at Tariq Bracy, he was the same way.
Right.
And then, once the timing was down, like there were a couple plays last year where Mickey just kind of mistimed it by a split second, jumped too early or whatnot, but he was there. Right. Yeah. I think he's going to be good.
Yeah. Give me I'm going to put you on the spot. Give me a season prediction right here. What do you think Notre Dame's going to do?
I want to say 11-1, but realistically a 10-2 season.
Let's go 11-1.
I don't know. I think 10 wins is kind of. This is maybe just overly optimistic, but I think 10 wins is a floor. Because I'm not sold that Clemson is the Clemson of old. I'm just not. Maybe that offensive coordinator changes everything for them, but I think they're going through a culture issue right now. There, I don't think Clemson is like you gave me a list like, hey, where would you put Notre Dame? I think they're just distinct tier 1 of teams. I don't think Clemson's there anymore. I think it's Bama, Georgia, and Ohio State. I think the tier 2, and then I think Clemson is in that tier 2 with us, with Michigan, with LSU. I think they're right on the cusp, but I don't think Clemson is in that first tier anymore. So I think Clemson is a pretty winnable game. Granted, it's there. They're gonna have it circled after what happened last year.
For sure.
Ohio State's got a new quarterback. Granted, he's a 5-star, but 5 stars don't always pan out. There's a chance there. USC, I would love it if it's 30 degrees and blowing strong winds. I mean, the rest of the team, I don't know. They have so many transfers; it's so hard to project. That kid, Caleb Williams, is a special player. I'm not sure it necessarily translates to the NFL like Mahomes did. But as a college player, man, he's special. So that's going to be a tough game. I think that's going to be a tough game. And the other probably toughest game I think would be Duke. I think Riley. I think Mike Elko's a really good coach.
Yeah.
To do what he did in year 1 down there. Riley Leonard, their QB, is. I mean, he has that first round kind of potential. So I think they're going to be a tough team. But I mean, if you take what we had last season and just put a quarterback on that team with like a good quarterback, I think you easily win the Marshall and Stanford games, and I think you potentially win Ohio State or USC as well. Mm-hmm. Right, so that's where I'm coming from. I want to say 11-1, but I think 11-1 gets us into the playoffs. But probably
I agree with that. By the way, here's the thing, guy. I think you should one. I don't think you should do a caveat. I don't like caveats. You should just go with it.
Let's go 11-1.
Let's go 11-1. I like that. So what you're saying is like, look, USC, Ohio State, both at home. Find a way to win one of those games.
Yeah.
Find a way to win one of those games. And I agree with you on Clemson. I think that Notre Dame has recent success against Clemson, and look, whenever there's good feelings, they are not going to have that. Like they haven't had like this team, they've had recent success against USC, but it's different because the new coaching staff and everything. Yeah. They definitely haven't against Ohio State, and so there might be a little bit of a kind of a mental block there with Ohio State, but that shouldn't be there with Clemson. Even if it's on the road, like you should be ready to go. And here's the other thing that I think it helps Notre Dame with, like the Dukes and the the NC States and the Clemsons of the world, is that Pitt. Sam Hartman's played against them. It's not new for him. He's played
Right.
against those teams, so it's like he kind of has like, look, this is not weird. Like I don't. This isn't anything that I have not seen before. I've played these teams. I'm used to playing these teams. I've done numbers against these teams. I mean, he gave Clemson 6 touchdowns last year. Like what is he? You know, what is he? What he's not going to be all intimidated or anything like that. So I think
the Ohio State one, we got to win that. It's the opposite of last year, right? Last year we had a first year QB going into the shoe. I think this year they got a first year QB.
Yeah,
I mean, if Joe Alt and Blake Fisher are as good as advertised, they got to show it in that game.
Yep.
Right. I think there's a chance. I mean, I wouldn't say over 50%, but there's a substantial chance.
There's a chance.
I think what Michael just said, I think like the Ohio State one is the big one. If we beat Ohio State, everything changes. Right.
Yeah.
It's like we've beaten USC,
really
we've beaten Clemson. If we beat Ohio State, the landscape, the perspective from national pundits, that's gonna really change.
Yeah. And that's when you got to worry about Duke. So
yeah. I don't know how I still don't know how Michigan is boat racing 2 years in a row.
Well, I think the time of game matters. You know, they get to play them at the end of November. I mean, if Michigan and Ohio State played the opener in September, like perfect night, it's not 30 degrees, like you said. Like I think that matters. Like Ohio State's a passing team now. It's different.
It's fair.
So
they got 2 really good running backs. It's crazy that no one's talking about TreVeyon Henderson. They're just talking about the other kid who ran all over us last year. But they got some good backs.
Yep. Good football team. All right. Ge Wang says 11-1, and that's what we're sticking with. I'm gonna put it in the description. Ge Wang 11-1 playoff berth. So it's good stuff. Ge, thanks for coming on the show, man. This is really fun. It's really good to talk football with you. Good to talk your product and all those things. Congratulations on all your success, by the way. That's really great.
Thank you.
Good for you. And thanks. Everyone, check out espclothing.com. Take advantage of the promos and the codes and all those other things. It's a great product. Marcus Freeman's probably wearing it right now, doing a lot of fun stuff. So thank you everyone for tuning in. We will be back next week sometime. So fall practice starts on the 26th, which is a Wednesday. I'm trying to coordinate with Jamie because I'm also on vacation again, but I will be doing shows. We're definitely doing shows while I'm on vacation because fall practice starting. We got hit and hustles. Got to get going for the fall camp. So we got
to get through one more weekend of no news, and then that's
one more weekend. Everyone's healthy and doing fine, and then we'll get things ramped up. So hit the like, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. Links in the description below. The podcast. Good weekend, everyone, and we will talk to you next week.